Hey guys, welcome back into the Corked Up Podcast here. Jack again. We're going to go ahead and do another mock draft. You guys seem to really like the last one I did, the Yahoo Fantasy League 12th round. Feel free to click in the top corner to go ahead and check that out if you are going to be joining a 12-man league. This time today, we're going to go ahead and do a 10-man league. Figured, that seems to be a very common draft amount as well. I originally had the fourth pick, but I felt that was too similar to having the third pick in the last draft, so I went ahead and purposely moved myself down to number 10, just because obviously I know certain people don't always get the luck of the draw, and sometimes they do start towards the bottom of the round. Personally, for me, I kind of always really enjoy having back-to-back picks. I think it just makes things a little bit easier with certain positions that you want to go to. Before we get to our 10th pick, we still have about six picks left to go. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff to the podcast, our YouTube channel, which this will probably go up to. And then, we'll be recording our new episode tomorrow, so definitely be on the lookout for that. We're going to talk some Bears preseason week 3, some Justin Fields news. Obviously, we'll go over the 53-man roster. Cut down day is today, so we should have that pretty soon. But right now we're doing obviously the mock draft just to kind of get you guys ready. I know a lot of people like to wait for the preseason to be over. Obviously it helps to know what major injuries are happening. Obviously with Travis Etienne, Cam Akers, J.K. Dobbins, all of that good stuff makes the draft a little bit easier to get through. So we're about to come up to our pick here. Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, Kamara, Zeke Elliott, Nick Chubb, Aaron Jones, Davante Adams, all gone. Still some pretty interesting names here at the 10th spot. So again, kind of what we talked about in the last one. I do think it's important to grab running backs a little bit early on here. There's still some options here. I'm going to go with Jonathan Taylor here. I just think he's the best option by far. And then boom, right back to our next pick here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and draft Travis Kelsey. This is something that I talked about last time. There's really only 3, maybe 4 to 5 draftable tight ends early on. Travis Kelsey, you have Darren Waller, George Kittle, and then I would say it kind of breaks down to that next tier of Mark Andrews and Kyle Pitts, the rookie with the Falcons. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab the tight end, the best tight end available. He plays like a wide receiver. I think that's good value. We're definitely not going to have that opportunity to get him kind of close to where we are with our next pick. But as you can see, by the time we get to our 3rd and 4th pick, there's still going to be potentially some very good wide receiver options, and obviously a quarterback as well. Never mind, Patrick Mahomes just went. See, it's this kind of stuff where you're drafting with people, you're not quite sure what they're going to do, especially in a mock draft when there's just so many different options with where they can go. You can still see running backs are still going fairly early on here. I think we got good value. We can still get some other good running backs by the time we pick. Just depending on what guys like to do. They may just keep going running backs. They may go quarterback. Now they might draft tight ends that have started that train going there. With mock drafts, especially with guys doing auto picks and stuff like that, it's a little more difficult to really kind of get a feel for where you're drafting. But, if you're in a league where you know everyone and kind of what their tendencies are, you can kind of game plan that way. Taking a look here, you can see the wide receivers are starting to go a little bit more. First quarterback. I think the 15th pick for Patrick Mahomes is probably a little too early. Kind of like what we were talking about in the last draft. You can get a really good quarterback, especially in a 1-quarterback league. There really isn't that much of a drop-off or a difference between a guy like Patrick Mahomes and Kyler Murray to the point where you're drafting a quarterback in the 2nd round. You can even get a serviceable guy like Ryan Tannehill, and he'll still score a good amount of points for you, and you can kind of target positions a little bit different. I would say it's definitely, personal preference. It's what you feel like you want to do with your team. But, like I said, we drafted the top tight end by far. And we have 4 picks to go before we get to ours. The 2 tight ends just went. So there's still going to be a really good wide receiver right here available for us. At this point, well, it's going to be Allen Robinson and Keenan Allen gone off the board. I still feel really good about either Terry McLaurin or CeeDee Lamb as our top wide receiver. We can even go a little bit deeper, or we can go ahead and grab our second running back. Out of these 3, I would say that Chris Carson is probably the safest bet, which is probably the direction we will go, depending on what happens with this next couple picks here. I would feel good with James Robinson, to be honest with you. I think he's going to get a lot of work in that offense. Terry McLaurin just went, which is interesting. But, Chris Carson just went. So we're going to go ahead, and we're going to take Keenan Allen, who I am a huge fan of. And then we'll go ahead and grab our... Let's go ahead and just draft a quarterback. Let's do something a little bit different here. We're going to get the second best quarterback available right now. And we're going to go ahead and draft Josh Allen. I really like Josh Allen. I think preseason is always a little bit different in terms of how to evaluate certain quarterbacks. But what I've seen from preseason and Josh Allen shows me that he's not going to have this drop-off that everyone seems to be predicting to happen with him. He's a good quarterback, man. Like, especially fantasy-wise, he likes to run the football. He can still, he has one of the best arms in the league. He was always kind of this project guy, and the Bills seem to have kind of gotten him to that step. So I feel really good about that quarterback position. And again, with the mock draft, I could have played it safe. I could have gotten a really solid, second running back, or, even another wide receiver like CeeDee Lamb, or, James Robinson, David Montgomery. I could have gotten one of those guys. But, again, I'm not picking again until 15 picks. So if I wanted to grab a quarterback now, that was really my opportunity to do so. And there's still there's still going to be some guys available. I expect there will be a quarterback run pretty soon here. So we got that out of the way. We got our tight end. We got one of the best, it's probably the second best quarterback fantasy-wise. And I'm feeling good about this roster. And again, with mock drafts, it's not necessarily doing the same thing every single time. Obviously, you guys wouldn't probably want to see me drafting the same exact guys every single time. So shaking it up a little bit. Obviously we got the A+ draft grade last time, which was definitely nice to see. I know Yahoo can sometimes be a little stingy with those grades. And again, it was a little bit different with the auto drafting and picking defenses and kickers definitely earlier on than we would have liked. I still feel like we got a good kicker, a good defense last time, so that will probably be the same plan. They just don't make enough of a difference to really matter. I don't even think there's really maybe Justin Tucker, but is there really a kicker that you want that early? I don't think so. So, you can see Lamar Jackson just went, obviously, going on the receiver run, still a little bit heavy. I expect this round we'll start seeing guys in the quarterback spot go a little bit more. Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, guys like that. Still wide receivers. There's still some really good options available to us. I wouldn't feel too bad about getting any of these guys right here in this range as our second wide receiver. But they might not be available to us. So what I'm probably looking to do, if this holds up to kind of where it's at right now, and let's just say all of these top guys are gone, which I doubt will happen, but if for whatever reason they are all gone, what I'm probably going to do here is I'm probably going to get Julio Jones and Damian Harris. I would feel like those are two really good wide receiver, our second wide receiver and our second running back as well. I feel like that kind of fills up our starting lineup pretty nice. With Julio Jones, it's tough. He's obviously 32. He's had some injuries. Cam Akers just went 43rd, which that makes no sense to me unless that was an auto pick. Obviously, Cam Akers is going to be out the year. This is a redraft league, so you're definitely not going to be using him at all. So with stuff like that, it's tough. It makes these mock drafts a little bit tougher to do because it's not necessarily what real people are doing in your draft. Just kind of showing what I'm hoping that we can get. But see, like, if you wait, like Kyler Murray is still available by the time you get to our 6th pick here. So at least for now. So if you didn't want to grab Josh Allen, just kind of wait a little bit there. I think that totally makes sense. Deontay Johnson just went. I would recommend, like last time, just stay away from that Steelers offense. it's too random right now with the quarterback play. You're not really sure what you're going to get from that. From Ben and from whoever the backup is, if it's Mason Rudolph, if it's Dwayne Haskins, they're going to try and run the ball a lot this year with Najee Harris obviously spending a first round pick on him. So it is our pick again. So what we're going to do here is we are going to draft. Let's draft the best running back available again. This would be Miles Sanders. He's going to get a lot of volume in that Eagles offense. And then instead of Julio Jones, like I predicted we would take, let's go ahead and grab Brandon Ayuk, who's going to be the number one option with Jimmy G. And hopefully when Trey Lance gets in there pretty soon, Brandon Ayuk is a guy that I'm really high on. I think he has a lot of upside to him. So I like to play the upside, try and get a guy who may kind of just pop off and have a great season. So again, there's still some really good quarterbacks available: Justin Herbert, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. So again, we didn't necessarily need to go with Josh Allen where we did, but again, wanted to do something a little bit different. And again, with the bye week stuff, I'm not as worried about this in a mock draft. It is something you're definitely going to want to pay attention to in your drafts. You want to make sure that you're not just drafting guys who aren't obviously going to be available to you the same week. But week 14, that's pretty far down the road, so we can kind of still get guys like Myles Gaskin. Oh wait, by week 14. See, that type of stuff you definitely want to pay attention to. But it's not something I'm necessarily worried about right now, just with this being a mock draft. I like just kind of explaining my thought processes behind the players as opposed to just talking by week. So again, just real quick before we get to our flex spot here, let's go ahead and take a look. We got Josh Allen, Keenan Allen, Brandon Ayuk, Jonathan Taylor, Miles Sanders, Travis Kelsey. I feel like that's a really good starting lineup. Now it's going to be about acquiring depth. Obviously, we still do have that flex spot open to us. So we'll probably look to grab. I'm really hoping that Trey Sermon falls a little bit. He's a guy that I'm very high on in terms of that 49ers offense. I know there's, Mostert is there, obviously, and they're going to, he's quote-unquote the starter, but Trey Sermon, I think, is a guy who will take command of that offense sooner rather than later. I think that would be an awesome value pick. Could also grab a backup quarterback if we wanted to potentially trade a quarterback for a better player that maybe you weren't able to get. We touched on that last time as well. Again, this is a mock draft. These guys aren't going to be trading picks anytime soon. So it's not necessarily something that I think you need to do in this type of draft, obviously. But that is a legitimate option. I mean, if guys are left with quarterbacks that they just don't like, you can potentially flip a higher quarterback for a guy that maybe you just like. If we wanted T. Higgins and we wanted that guy and he ends up with a lower level quarterback, you can potentially make that deal. Just another option that I think is available to you. Coming up here to our 7th pick here, there's still some really good players available. Again, Chase Claypool is there, Jerry Jeudy. With those two, they're kind of two peas in the same pod. The Steelers offense, there's a lot of opportunities there. There's a lot of options, a lot of weapons. Same thing with the Broncos offense as well. And you kind of have similar questions at quarterback. Like, what is Teddy Bridgewater as the QB1 going to? Is he going to uplift that offense? That still remains to be seen. I assume Dak, Trey Sermon, and Kareem Hunt will go here unless auto pick is drafting defenses and tight ends and things like that. So okay, Robert Tonyan is gone. We'll see what this guy does here with his auto pick. But yeah, there's still some really, really interesting names left. Obviously the Denver backfield. This is when it helps to have these back-to-back type picks. You can, if you really wanted to, you can draft both of these guys and feel good that, I don't have to worry about when Javonte Williams is going to be the starter. You have both of them available and ready to play if one gets hurt. You have the cuff for the other. That may be an option to go with. But I think it just depends. This is a PPR league, so you do want to make sure your wide receiver spots and you have good pass-catching running backs as well. So Justin Herbert just went, so we're going to go ahead and get our guy Trey Sermon. Really happy with that pick. Really happy with how that worked out. And, again, there is a couple other wide receivers to get. The only two we have right now are Keenan Allen and Brandon Ayuk. So let's go ahead and go with the higher opportunity, the higher ceiling of Jerry Jeudy. I think he's going to be the one over Chase Claypool by the end of the year. Denver's going to be passing a lot. They're probably, going to be in a lot of games, but, I know the names are there. Noah Fant, you have Cortland Sutton coming back, KJ Hamler, but I think it's really not that far of a stretch to say Jerry Jeudy is by far the most talented wide receiver on that team. And when it comes to Claypool, I would say he should be their wide receiver one, but Deontay Johnson, we know that Big Ben really likes him as a target. And I would say right now he's there. And Juju's still there. They drafted Pat Freiermuth. They still have Eric Ebron. They're going to run the ball a lot more. I think Jerry Jeudy is probably the safer bet. But at that point, you're probably just splitting hairs in terms of kind of where you're drafting. So we're going down to our next pick, kind of just taking a look, Antonio Brown. I've said this on the last video, and I'll say it again. I'm just staying away from Tampa Bay. There's too many question marks about who's going to get what volume there. And it's hard to tell. It really is hard to tell what that team is going to look like. Even the running back position, you basically would have to draft both Ronald Jones, who I think should be the starter, but we know that he's not exactly a favorite of the coaching staff there. So you never know what type of workload Leonard Fournette may get, and even Gio Bernard, who apparently is going to be touching the ball all the time. So you just don't know. I'm staying away from Antonio Brown, at least for now. And as you can see, with that auto pick going on, you're getting defenses going. It's tough with these auto picks because you just don't know. But it helps us because it helps us see what better players are going to be available. Obviously, the more defenses that go, the better players position wise we can get. You have the kickers going now, which I'm sure that will start a run, but you can already see it kind of affecting our draft in terms of what rankings players are going to be available at. So if we go to fantasy points, you can still see a lot of quarterbacks are still available, a lot of good ones too. Go to our average draft position. Kareem Hunt is still available. Ronald Jones, Jamar Chase. We touched on Jamar Chase the last time, and he did not have a good preseason whatsoever. In this type of league, in Dynasty, you can go ahead and draft Jamar Chase and feel really good about it. In a redraft 1-year league, I'm going to go other spots, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, those types of guys first before I'm drafting Jamar Chase. I think it's going to take a while for him to get going. If at all this season, he may need that full year to really get back to what type of player that everyone thought he could be when he was drafted. It's just too risky right now. I think Tyler Boyd is a safer option. He obviously had a really productive year with Joe Burrow when obviously they downgraded to Brandon Allen. You kind of saw the limitations of that offense. But when Joe Burrow was there, Tyler Boyd was producing. Same with T. Higgins as well. Obviously Joe Burrow played in the preseason game, or at least he was active, which is always good. So you can feel confident. We still have another week to go before the regular season gets started. So there's another week for him to get healed up and prepared and ready to go. So something that's interesting that's happening is with defenses and kickers going, we're now 2 picks away from getting still having those Broncos running backs on the board, as well as a really good wide receiver in Tyler Boyd. and I think we're probably going to be able to select, have our pick of those two players. So if Tyler Boyd is still available, we're absolutely going to grab him in the 9th round. That is great value. So let's go ahead and just get that right off the board. And then what we want to do here as well, we could grab another quarterback. We could grab another running back, another wide receiver. I do like Kareem Hunt in this spot. But let's go ahead and draft a potential starter in Javonte Williams. We saw what happened with Kareem Hunt's numbers, in the first couple weeks with Nick Chubb out. He was an absolute monster, running back 1, no doubt about it, that type of tier. Then, when Nick Chubb came back, we saw Kareem Hunt's numbers absolutely die. So if you have to hope that Nick Chubb gets hurt to have a productive year from Kareem Hunt, you're not really going to have a good season if you have to rely on other people getting hurt. So I feel good about Javonte Williams. Melvin Gordon just went right now. Between the two, I'd say Javonte Williams will probably have more of an impact, at least later on. And that's why I feel good about taking him there. Because we still have Jonathan Taylor, Miles Sanders, and Trey Sermon. All guys who I'd feel better about starting right now than Javonte Williams or Melvin Gordon anyways. So we can leave him on the bench. And we can wait until he gets that starting spot, or at least just gets consistent attempts or passes to really take that offense to another level. So I think that's the right move. I love having back-to-back picks. It takes some of the, the anxiety away of being like, oh, well, if I can't get this player, it's okay. Like, what do I do? I know I want this guy, but I want that guy. Having the back-to-back picks, you're basically making 2 picks at once, which I know you're waiting a little bit longer, obviously, to go again, which kind of sucks. But, there is something to it, to having back-to-back picks that I really do like. So, yeah, you can see Jamar Chase just went with the 100th pick overall. It's pretty interesting. I'd say it's a little bit lower than where I expected him to go, but I do think those preseason numbers have really kind of hurt his stock with a lot of people, and that could be good for you. Because if you really, really like Jamar Chase and you think that he'll kind of shake that rust off sooner rather than later, absolutely go and get him then. He's going to fall a little bit more. And you can feel good about getting him at the 100th pick overall. That's definitely good value, especially if he can turn things around. But again, I think there is legitimate reasons why his stock has fallen so much, why he is going at the 100th pick instead of a lot higher over a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster or, any of these other guys that have gone. Kenny Galladay, you would have expected Jamar Chase to go way before Kenny Galladay. So that's a little interesting to see that, but I do get it. I really do understand why his stock is coming down. It's just people are afraid of him because he's just had a lot of drops, and obviously with a rookie wide receiver, drops are killer, and you really don't want to see that with a guy who was a top 5 selection and a guy who's supposed to be this transcendent talent, and he's already having issues catching the ball after missing a full season of college football because he chose not to play, which I don't think was the wrong decision, but he's obviously still has a lot of work to do to get caught up to where he's going to try and get to. So as we come up here to our next pick, there's still some really interesting names, I think. I think what we're going to do here, we could get our second quarterback, which is definitely an option. Matt Stafford is obviously available. So we could technically, we could get our second quarterback and feel really safe about that. Or we can get another rookie wide receiver, or we can go ahead and get a guy that I have a lot of high upside on. So let's go ahead and grab our second quarterback, a guy that I feel really good about in the offense that he's going to be in, ready to kind of explode there. So Matt Stafford, got our second quarterback. Now we really don't have to worry about that for the rest of the draft. Then we kind of still have our pick of the litter here. A guy that I'm incredibly high on is Leviska Chanel. I love Leviska Chanel. I am so excited about him in this offense. I know people are going to be thinking DJ Chark right up here is probably going to be that wide receiver 1, but he hasn't really proven anything to this point, even with Trevor Lawrence in. So that's something to keep an eye on. I think Leviska is probably more of the playmaker. There are some other guys we probably could have gotten instead. Brandon Cooks, I think he's undervalued a lot. Corey Davis is obviously going to be a preferred target for Zach Wilson in New York. That wouldn't have been a bad pick. Devonta Smith, the presumed number one wide receiver for Jalen Hurts. They obviously have that connection from Alabama. So that wouldn't have been a bad pick. But I have just absolutely loved what I've seen from Leviska Chanel in the preseason. Plus, we're already pretty deep at wide receiver at this point, especially with our starters, Keenan Allen, Brandon Ayuk, Jerry Jeudy, Tyler Boyd. I think we can take a risk on Leviska Chanel being that ultimate playmaker and getting maybe, again, potential higher upside than a guy like Corey Davis, who is probably going to have a very productive season. But I just like Leviska better. I don't know what it is. If Corey Davis is available, I would definitely say take a shot on him. For example, him being available in the 13th round still, that would be great value. You're getting a wide receiver one in an offense where there's just not a lot of choices, and we've seen in the preseason that Zach Wilson does really prefer him as a top-tier option. So what we're going to do with our next pick is we're probably going to grab a running back, considering we only have the three. We have four on our roster. We have Jonathan Taylor, Miles Sanders, Trey Sermon, and Javonte Williams. That's not super deep at the running back position. A little bit different from the way we wanted to go in the last draft, where we came out with an A+ draft grade. I have a feeling we won't get an A+ again for this draft. Because, again, I went running back heavy on that last one, and for good reason. You start to see the names that are available here, and it's just not names you fall in love with. Kenyon Drake, Devin Singletary, Tony Pollard, Nyheim Hines. I think here what we would do, if he is available, is we're probably going to go Devin Singletary, because I do think he has the best opportunity out of all of the running backs that are left to get consistent running back one targets and volume. So let's go ahead and just line this one up here. And again, realistically, if you really wanted to, we could draft Trevor Lawrence right here, and we could trade him for a higher level running back, for a guy that maybe wants a better quarterback. You know what? He did just go. So instead of doing that, instead of reaching for a running back, let's go ahead and draft Corey Davis. I really do like that volume that he's going to get. The running backs, I feel like we're deep enough on. You're only going to have two starters. We don't even need to start Trey Sermon. We can start one of these higher level running backs, wide receivers if we wanted to, which I think makes a lot of sense there. So what we're going to do now is, I totally forgot that it was our pick. So let's go ahead and draft the Colts defense again. I think you can feel good about drafting New England. They're going to be a lot better this year than they were last year with all of their guys healthy again. But back to this, if it's a PPR league, wide receivers are probably going to have more value than running backs anyways. So, you could play a really good wide receiver there and still have Trey Sermon on your bench. So, I think at this point, take best player available. Corey Davis was the best player. I'm not going to force a pick with Devin Singletary if I don't feel like he's going to really make the team that much better, especially if I'm not going to play him that much. In a PPR league, you're probably not going to be playing more running backs and wide receivers anyways. So then, obviously, what we're going to do here is we're just going to take the best kicker available. Fantasy points, you can even sort it that way. Nick Folk, Matt Gay. The Rams are probably going to be scoring a lot of points this year with a better quarterback. And Matt Stafford, make no mistake, you can look at his career in Detroit. He was not the problem. He had literally no weapons throughout his entire career outside of Calvin Johnson, who, again, was a great player, but it's hard to win with just one wide receiver. They never really had a stable running back room. They never really had another wide receiver two outside of maybe Golden Tate, who was really good, but at that point you're kind of running him out as the wide receiver one. So they just never really found that balance that that really fit what Matt Stafford was looking to do. I'm so excited to see what he does in that Rams offense with the weapons he has. Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Deshaun Jackson is there. Tutu Atwell is as well, but I'm not super high on him. And then they have a good running back room. I would have loved to have seen Akers play. And then they have, a defense that I don't think Matt Stafford has really ever played with. So, yeah, I feel really good about him as our quarterback too. Obviously, the only time we're going to play him is Week 7, unless there's really not going to be a whole lot of options or matchups where I take Josh Allen out of the lineup, if ever. But if he gets hurt, which obviously, can happen with quarterbacks who like to run a little bit more, I feel good about Matt Stafford plugging him in and just letting him roll the rest of the year and getting, picking up another guy if need be. But again, this was very fun. I enjoyed having the 10th pick. I feel like we got a really solid squad here. And once I get this kicker, I'll kind of go over that. I'll post the draft grade as well, just so you guys can see that. That'll be the thumbnail on the YouTube video. So let's just go ahead and make our final pick. So, our final draft here, we got Josh Allen as our quarterback, Keenan Allen, Brandon Ayuk, Jonathan Taylor, Miles Sanders, Travis Kelsey, Trey Sermon, Matt Gay, the Colts defense, and then on our bench, Jerry Jeudy, Tyler Boyd, Javonte Williams, Matt Stafford, Leviska Chanel, and Corey Davis. I feel very good about that team. That should be a playoff team at the very least, if not just championship level overall. Got a very good wide receiver, very good running back room, and obviously the best tight end, and then the second best quarterback overall in entire fantasy football. So appreciate you guys hanging out with me again. Again, like, subscribe on that video on YouTube. Check out the Corked Up Podcast episode tomorrow, where we'll go over some more Bears stuff and maybe some more NFL news overall. But I appreciate it. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you guys next time.